Society today seems to slowly be realizing that not everything will last forever. Some things eventually run out. Prices are rising day by day as things are slowly disappearing that were there for us before. Things like oil, fish, natural gas, etc. Alaska used to be fish galore, and it still is, but we are seeing less and less fish every day. That is why our society is trying to come up with new ways for those daily essentials to last longer. The windmill is a prime example of this. Unlike those other things like the gas, oil, and fish, the windmill is something that will always work because there will always be wind to generate the mills. Windmills can be considered cost effective for multiple reasons, but a few of the main reasons are that they will eventually pay themselves off and there will always be wind to help generate electricity. First, I will talk to you a little more about the windmill itself, and then I will continue by talking about what it takes to make a windmill, its cost effectiveness, and why we should use them. The first windmill was made in Persia around 500 and 900 AD. Well, it was the first documented mill. It was documented by a Persian geographer, and it was used for grain grinding. The first actual windmill that was used to generate wind or electricity from wind was made in Ohio in the winter of 1887 and 1888. It was made by Charles F. Brush, who was also considered a child prodigy. He had invented some pretty serious stuff when he was 15 years old, and he built the windmill behind his mansion. The windmill stood at about 60 feet tall, and it was a 40-ton iron tower that sat on a circular platform that would rotate so that it could get the most or best wind source. And it would, today's windmill stands at about 80 to 120 feet tall, and that's usually a part of the package. You don't have to add more to it. Um, it's so tall because the higher the windmill, the better source of electricity you get, and it's also necessary to be that high because if it's not, it could mess up the power lines or get tangled with the trees or other things like that. What it takes to make one is the first thing you need is the right placement or environment. And when I say that, I mean you need to live somewhere with a lot of wind, not just all the time, or not just sometimes, but all the time. Um, you need a lot of wind because if there's no wind, then there's nothing that will cause the blades to turn to generate the electricity. Electricity will have to be used to generate your windmill, and that's not what we wanted to do. And you also need to know if you're going to make it yourself or have a professional do it. And you need to remember that it's only going to be cost effective if you do it yourself because most professionals overcharge. I researched on it. Someone made their own windmill with about $200, and our house electric bill is $250. So in less than a month, we would already have paid off our windmill, what it took to make a windmill, and then we would have that extra money every month to save for other things. It's also very easy to do yourself. There's a lot of YouTube videos on the easy steps of how to put it together. It's not something that is like a foreign language to us. You would understand it very well. Windmills are cost effective because they pay themselves off over time. Um, Samson, who purchased a windmill, said that his would be paid off in 6 to 8 years time estimate, and he estimated it would last 25 to 30 years. So even if you did purchase it, eventually it would pay itself off. It would just take a lot more time than it would to make it yourself. And in the long run, that's a lot of free energy. The second reason why windmills are cost effective is because there's always going to be wind. Wind isn't something that's going to run out over time. it's always going to be there. And why we should use windmills is because it's a benefit to us. The money you save over time can be spent on other things that you would rather be spending it on than electricity bills. You could spend it on things like vacations, snow machines, gas, cars, etc. And it's also an environmental benefit because wind is there for a reason. Why not use it if it's going to be there? We don't have to pay for it. I believe as long as you have the time, money, and correct placement, why not build your own residential windmill? Who doesn't want to save a few extra bucks here and there? $250 a month saved would usually be spent on an electricity bill really adds up over time. Our gas and any money that we spend isn't getting any cheaper, and neither are the other essential things to living. Wind is free. Why not use it to our advantage? It's something that will always be there. And if you're worried about a little pollution that the windmill might make, I would worry a little more about the pollution that's coming from your car, and I would suggest maybe riding a bike or walking. Thanks.